Welcome everyone to our Tuesday, May 19th agenda session. Can I have approval of the minutes?
So moved. Second.
With no objections, they'll stand as read. Madam Clerk, would you go ahead and read, even though it's second reading, ordinances on final reading under police, please, 5A.
An ordinance to amend the charter of the city of Chattanooga and all acts, ordinance, and or charter provisions and mandatory thereof pursuant of the provisions of Article 11, Section 9 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, Home Rule Amendment, so as to change the city charter by adding a new section 13.17 related to the establishment of a police advisory and review committee to Title 13 of the city charter.
Okay, Councilman Mitchell, you had some questions earlier about this and strategic planning. Are you clear on this now? Any further questions?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Good, okay.
Yes.
All right, let's move on then to ordinances first reading, and forgive me, I don't believe we've read this into the minutes. Madam Clerk, 6A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 901 South Holtzclaw Avenue, 903, 9105, and 1001 South Greenwood Avenue, two unaddressed parcels in the 1300 blocks of Bennett and Anderson Avenue, more particularly described herein, from M1 manufacturing zone, M2 light industrial zone, and R1 residential zone to UGC urban general commercial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, this was an item that was deferred back in 2019. Hold on, let me switch screens. Councilman Mitchell.
Well, your explanation might answer my question, so please proceed, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if we have any questions, John Bridger is in the attendees. Councilwoman Coonrod or Councilman Byrd, any questions? Councilwoman Coonrod.
I don't have any questions, Chair, but to my understanding, they wanted it to be deferred again.
Liddy,
John.
Liddy, could you bring John Bridger in, please?
Sir?
That was going to actually be my question, Mr. Chair. Has everything finally worked out?
I think so.
I believe Mr. Bridger said something about it recently, Mr. Chair, about it needing to be, or that the applicant wanted to defer.
You're bringing Jason Silvers. John Bridger.
It's okay.
He was
No,
right there, and I clicked on him, and then it wasn't him.
That's all right.
There we go. Mr. Bridger?
Am I here? Am I live?
You're
live.
Well, sounds like you are anyway.
Hey, yeah, we got an email request from the applicant request, I think, the furthest to June. And I think I noted in that response, I don't know if they've communicated with their council reps about figuring out a specific date. If you, I gotta leave it up to discretion of the council reps, but one option, if you want to keep it on your zoning route schedule, it will be that second Tuesday in June. So it's up to you all.
Be June 9th. Councilwoman Coonrod, any follow up on that?
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine as long as, they're ready to move forward with it at that time. I just, want them to have all their ducks in a row and before we get to moving forward, but that'll be fine.
Okay. Councilman Byrd, you good?
I'm with her. Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bridger.
Sure.
Okay. Under Public Works and Transportation, Councilman Mitchell, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's see. Well, you weren't here last week. I believe these were read into the record last week. Somebody help me.
Should have been. I think the chair was kind of sketchy that we had last week for this committee meeting. So.
We were just doing the best we can with what we had.
Okay, but they should have been read in last week.
Let me just put it forth to the council this way. Does anybody have any questions under 6B or 7E through H?
No, sir.
Councilwoman Coonrod, is that an old hand?
No, it's a new one.
New? Okay.
But my question is not pertaining to any of these items, but it has something to do with the sewer easement that's on the other end of Shaliford Road, where District 5 and 9 kind of connects, it still floods there. And we've been told previously that the work had been done and been completed. And still, when we have a heavy rain, it still overflows. Are we able to do something about that, or do we know when it'll be fixed, or is it in the consent decree or anything?
Let me look. I'm looking for Justin right now. Do you see Justin Holland on here?
No, sir.
No, I don't either. I thought maybe I just overlooked him. Mara?
Do we have Donald Stone on here?
Yeah, no. Yes, yeah, he's here.
Okay, bring Mr. Stone in, please. Mr. Stone, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. Councilwoman Coonrod has a question for you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Donald. So the sewer overflow on Shaliford Road on the end that District 9 and 5 where we split, it still overflows when we have a heavy rain. And we've been told repeatedly that that sewer has been completed, it was fixed. But unfortunately, when we get that heavy rain, it still produces the same result that it was prior to you fixing the sewer. Have we get an update as to when it will be fixed? And was this Shaliford Road, was that part of the consent decree to repair and fix? So just have some concerns about that.
Okay. Is that an intersection or is there a 100 block kind of specific location? Narrow it down a little bit.
It's right by Dalewood School, and kind of, because we split one side 5, one side 9, and then it kind of goes that ditch around that leads to the street, to the area over in District 5. But every time, the houses are still flooding in that area. The road is flooding, it's blocked off, and we were told that it was fixed.
Okay, I will check with Jeff Rose and see what has been done in that area and get back to you.
Thank you. And if you also will let me know if that area was included in this consent decree from EPA, or who, I may be saying it wrong, but if so, when will those dollars be there to actually prepare it? Not just do no patchwork, but to actually prepare it.
Okay, yes, ma'am, will do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, you good, madam?
Yes, I'm good.
Councilwoman? Okay. All right, is there any other questions? Councilman Mitchell, is that an old hand or is that a new hand?
My mistake. I'll lower it right now.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have no departmental reports at this time. Purchasing questions. You all have received the purchase request. Does anybody have any questions concerning purchasing? Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, maybe you want to bring Mr. Donald back up. Hope he can answer these questions. And Phil, while he's coming, I got to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Miss Lydia, hold on one second. Miss Lydia, you want to go ahead and bring Mr. Stone back in, please? Okay.
Yes, sir.
On this first one on Syntax, is this the one that we had that 28-year contract with?
I don't think so. Let's see. Wright Brothers, let me get down my list. All right, not to exceed $90,000. Let me double check, make sure.
No, this is $2 million, $2,500,000.
Okay, the reference here was, I'm looking at the one. Okay, this is just a third payment on Santac on here for the waste involvement on here. It's just a particular type of biosludge. That's not the one you're talking about?
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Gilbert's with a purchasing item instead of.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are you on purchasing?
Item.
You're on purchasing, correct, Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Well, what it is that, this company came up last week on a contract, and then I asked a couple of works to give me information on, is this one transporting things to the field? And now I guess they are with the $2 million thing. The problem I have is did this bid out? or was it bid out, or could have been bid out?
Yes, sir. Should have been bid out. It says it's the lowest and best bidder for this project, so it would have been a bid.
Let's, Mr. Gilbert, or Councilman Gilbert, let's bring Mr. Stone in and see if he can answer that question for us. Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Did you hear Councilman Gilbert's question about Santec on the refuse and recyclables transport service?
Yes. Yes, this was bid out. From my understanding, I actually was just informed about this last week.
Do you know how many bidders were on this?
Right.
No, that purchasing would know all of those details.
Could you want that information by 6 o'clock, Councilman?
I would like to know who bid it out, how many companies bid out, what was the bid was, who's the other company, and how much did they bid? And also, how many contracts do we have with this particular company? And because that might have some kind of reference to the bids too, when they got other things, other contracts with us, that bid could be lower. So I want to know how many contracts do we have with this company? I know we got 2. Is it more than 2?
The bio sludge today is for Santec as well. That was on your resolutions for the agenda. Yes, sir.
So can you get back with us before we vote on this, Mr. Stone?
Yes, I will try to track down this information for you.
I appreciate it, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sullivan, if you could have maybe Tony Salmons look into this for us. Miss Lydia, Ms. Sullivan's had her hand up. Would you go ahead and bring her in, please?
Thank you, Lydia. You're doing a great job, by the way. Yes, sir, I certainly will. And just looking at the bid documents that are provided.
Oh, and she got cut off. Are you back with us?
I'm back.
Okay.
Hello. Not a problem. I see you're doing a great job.
I think that was Vice Chair Smith probably did that. He's laughing like he did something to her.
The truth will out. Yeah, on the documents for purchases tonight, it says that there were 9 bids for Santec, Councilman, and on this for the refuse and recycling transport services, that 4 people returned. I can click on the documentation link and see. I mean, I can get you all of this, but if the links have who all gave their bids in, and what the prices were, the unit price, extended price on the different haulers. So I can just forward this to you right now so you can be taking a look at it, and we can, where are you? There you are. Hi. So we can review it together, but I don't know how many other bids, how many other contracts that Santec has right now, but we can try to get that for you before 6. Sure.
I appreciate it.
And I will, and Mr. Chair, I will, Tony is at another event right now.
Okay.
With the Urban League, but he'll be here at 6.
Councilman Gilbert, would you be available for a phone call, or is this through email, or how will you get this to Councilman Gilbert, Ms. Sullivan?
I will email it to him right now.
Okay.
And be glad to talk to him about it in between.
And you put what pages on? Because I think it's 33 pages total, correct?
It is.
So I couldn't get into the first, and I called Tony, and he says the second one to go second. Well, Nicole said it was the second one, so I pulled it up, but it was too many pages of reading, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I understand.
I couldn't get it open at first. So let me know what page it is. I can look at it.
Sure, absolutely, will do. Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Yep.
Okay, now we'll go to our May 26th.
My hand up about a purchasing item.
Oh, okay. Let me switch. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. And also, Mara, if you would email me that information as well, I'd appreciate it. So under the, for the police, the purchase of ammunition, what kind of ammunition are we purchasing? Is it just regular hollow points? Is it the Leo ammo? What all is it? Additional things that's coming with the bullets that we're purchasing that's included with this ammunition, or what exactly is it?
Well, let me see who, Ms. Sullivan, you want to answer that again, or do we need to bring somebody on from Miss Dana Bonds on with us? But Ms. Sullivan, can you answer that question for Ms. Kunal?
I don't, hello. I don't know the exact type of ammunition. I bet Dana does. And, but I do know that this is for our new gun purchase this year, that goes along with our new gun purchase this year. But I bet that Dana knows.
Ms.
Okay.
Liddy, you want to bring her on right quick?
Sorry, how's Dana spelled?
It's
Dana.
D-A-N-N-A, Vaughn,
Dana
V-A-U-G-H-N.
Sorry.
Awesome. No, that's all right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Can you hear us, Ms. Bond?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for your question. Councilwoman Coonrod, that ammunition is for us while we were making our transition from the 45 pistol to a 9mm. We are still in the middle of that that crossover, and that ammunition will get us prepared to complete that transaction, and also for the upcoming academy that's going to start back soon.
Okay, so it'll be enough for every officer to have ammunition for a 9mm.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
You good?
You're welcome.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's a
Thank you,
nice
ladies.
gun.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now we will move on to the March 26th agenda. Well, hold on. Does anybody have any questions? Let me just briefly run this by the council. I think it might be in our best interest if we start reading off the May 26th agenda, the 2-week agenda, simply to make sure that if any council person has questions, they have an opportunity to ask, unless it's like public works or planning that we know that would be in a committee. Does anybody have any objections to us doing that in the future? Just so that we could cover the items a week prior as well. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Mitchell?
Maybe I'm a little lost on it. Did we just get through the first 2 pages of the agenda session? I mean, I see some economic and community development. Is that going to be covered in the committee meeting?
That's in the committee. That's in the committee.
Okay.
As well as a couple of items in finance, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
All of those items will be in the committee.
Okay.
If you've had a chance to look over your May 26th agenda, are there any questions from the council concerning any of those items? Councilman Ledford.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under Human Resources, item H,
Okay.
if Beverly could give us a detailed breakdown of what we missed around with the original GARE program and why we need the $25,000 added. And I'd like to know what exactly we missed in the first round, whether it's in reporting or the survey or the training. If she would provide that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. And that's for, I mean, just sometime in the coming week?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what you're asking?
Yes,
Okay.
she can reach out to me. That's fine.
All right, Ms. Moultrie, if you're good with that, if you would get with Councilman Ledford and provide those answers, please.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Smith?
I believe those were all asked for a week ago
Mm-hmm.
for the entire council. To this date, to my knowledge, nobody has received anything about that program, but I do know that this request was made last week. So yeah, I mean, I'm okay getting them at another time, but we do need to we need to have them before next week, preferably.
Miss Lydia, I see Beverly Moultrie has her hand up. Moultrie, would you bring her in, please? All right. Miss Moultrie, can you hear us?
I can. Matter of fact, I sent that document over this afternoon. My assistant was sending it to Nicole for distribution to each of the council members. So if you don't have it within the next 10 minutes, please let me know, but it should be in your box. It's coming this afternoon.
Okay, was it a hard copy that you sent?
Yes, it would have been an email, PDF Word document addressing each of the resolution requests that we have for next week.
Okay, Councilwoman Burrs.
We went over the two in finance last week at long term. Do you want to go over them again?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, you mentioned, and I guess you didn't get a chance to read my email, Mr. Chair, before this meeting, but the two that are in finance for next week, 6A and 7B.
Okay.
We discussed last week relative to the 3-week agenda. Do you want to discuss it again? It's the money for the zoo and it's the regional tourism initiative.
So I think Councilwoman Coonrod had a question about the zoo. If her questions were answered, I think we're all good on that.
So, I mean,
but I think
yeah, we weren't preparing to do anything but budget because those were already answered. But if you want them up again.
So you weren't going to go over any of the items that was listed under.
So for the 26th, there were 2 items under finance, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were. This is in response to what you're saying. And
yes,
we
items
addressed them last week
okay.
on 3-week.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't, just so that they'll be read into the record when we get into budget and finance committee, if you would just have the clerk read in the first 3 items, just to have them read into the record. And then we can go to the budget presentation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we go there, can I just ask all council members on May 26th, we'll be voting on those the day they're in committee. So if you have some questions, please reach out to Public Works or to me, and I'll try to get you some answers for those. That's May 26th. Public Works, I don't believe there are any transportation items on the 26th, but there are several Public Works items for the 26th. And so if you have questions, either get them to me or reach out directly to Mr. Holland and try to get some answers so you don't feel like you're voting on something the same day it's being read.
Okay, very good. Okay, that covers the May 26th agenda. We've already looked at the 3-week look ahead, unless there are other questions. I'm going to take these committees in the order that they're listed here on our agenda. So at this time, Councilman Oglesby, let's go into economic and community development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I now call to order economic and community development. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's start reading resolutions. 7A, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3rd amendment to premise use agreement and option to renew in substantially the form attached with Rivermont Youth Athletic Association, Inc. for the use of property located on portion of tax map number 118KA009 at 1096 Lupton Drive for an additional term of 1 year.
Thank you. Councilman Mitchell, you good?
Yeah, I read the additions that the city attorney put into these youth association agreements, and I believe I'm okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, 7B.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a 3rd amendment to premise use agreement and option to renew in substantially the form attached with Lakeside Youth Association, Inc. for the use of property located at tax map number 129CA01H for an additional term of 1 year.
Councilman Gilbert, you good with that?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Clerk, let's now read 7C.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to enter into an independent contractor service standard form agreement is substantially the form attached with CBRE Inc. for specified real estate services for a term of 1 year with the option to renew for 2 additional terms of 1 year.
Seeing no hands, that concludes the May 19th resolution for economic and community development. Now, Madam Clerk, I see we have one for next week, May 26th. Let's read resolution 7A.
A resolution declaring surplus of a 2.94 acre portion of tax map number 136CA002.01 in the 2000 block of Curtin Pole Road and entering into a donation agreement with Chattanooga Area Food Bank, Inc., a registered nonprofit, in substantially the form attached, and to execute any related documents for the conveyance of the property for the purpose of leading a network of partners in eliminating hunger and promoting better nutrition for the benefit of the community.
Councilman Byrd, you're good?
Yes, I'm good, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. That concludes the
Mr.
May
Chair,
26th.
I'm sorry, you might not have seen it.
Oh, yeah, okay, Councilman Mitchell, I got you.
I just want a brief explanation, and anybody can give it to me if it's accurate. Is this just what I guess what is the food bank planning on doing with this donation?
Let me see, Miss Mora or Donna, Miss Williams.
Mr. Beelan has his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. Mr. Breland, you have the mic.
Not yet. Miss Lydia.
Okay.
Richard Beelan.
Okay, I see his hand. Where you at, Richard?
Ooh, he was there.
Looked like we might have lost them all together. See his hand, but no mic.
He's at the top of the list now, Lydia. His hand's up.
There we go.
Hi, Council.
Hello.
Mr. Beelan, yes.
Councilman Mitchell, they have a raised bed garden in the back of the property back there that they are growing vegetables in, and they wanted to continue to have some sort of programming like that on this other space, this other available land that they have there. And I believe that they were going to do something with their parking lot as well back there.
Okay, so it's their land, not ours. What's the donation part?
No, it is there. They already have on a portion of their property, they already have some raised bed gardens, and the sliver of property that we're donating to them, they're wanting to do more of the same on that property.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beelan. Thank you, Councilman Mitchell, for your question. Are any other questions related to the resolutions? Seeing no hands, we will now move on to our discussion on short-term vacation rental. About maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we talked about looking into this, and 2 things came out of those discussions that we need some clarification on. One, which we'll address first, would be boundaries, and the second one, which will probably be a lengthy discussion on owner versus non-owner occupied. So Councilman Mitchell, I knew you had some questions about the boundaries. So would you like to get us started off here, sir?
Well, really, they're sort of correlated, Mr. Chair. I've had a constituent who is out of the boundary for anything, and they were doing owner-occupied rentals, and of course they've been shut down from doing that, and it part of a retirement income that they were doing. And my question was, how would the council like to go about it? I don't really feel, and this obviously is in District 2. I don't really feel that we need to add to the non-owner occupied map but I was wondering what the council's feelings would be about adding to the map for owner occupied. I've heard, it seems like our problems have come in with non-owner occupied, but I haven't heard any problems, and I did a little research and I hadn't heard really a lot of problems about owner occupied really around the country, other than if a community just doesn't want it, period. So I was just wanting some discussion with the council about what they would feel about expanding owner occupied in the city of Chattanooga.
I see Chairman Henderson has his hand up. So would you please, Lydia, bring in Chairman Henderson?
I'm already in.
Okay. In like Flynn.
Councilman, this boundary, would this be contiguous with our overlay?
Well, as is typical with District 2 when we were originally making them, and I think you recall when we went back and one side of Hickson Pike in North Chattanooga was in and one side was out, and the folks out that lived on Hickson Pike didn't think that was fair, and so we went ahead and expanded the boundary there. This is a similar situation, just further north on the road in the River Hills area, and the question becomes, do we just move the map over some, or do we leave it as it is? I guess is I'm fully expecting some council people to say that they don't care if it's non-owner occupied or owner occupied. They don't want it in their district. But I would like to hear a couple council people say that before I decided, what I want to propose in legislation to the council.
Well, let me go back and repeat my question. I don't know if you answered it or not.
Well, I try not to.
Yeah. You're a great politician. Is this proposed boundary change contiguous with the rest of the existing overlay?
Well, there is no proposed boundary change yet for this one individual. It would be contiguous if we just went that route, because I'd just move it across the pike, but it'd still be connected to the other side of the pike. So,
okay. Yeah.
But
so I've got
wanting to know what the council's feelings are before I actually propose an actual boundary.
Mr. Chair, can I ask the city attorney a question before I see you got two other hands up, or do you want to come back?
No, if it's directly related to that, please go, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nobbit, Councilman Mitchell mentioned something about owner occupied versus non-owner occupied, allowing owner occupied. We're not able, state legislation prohibits us from distinguishing, does it not?
I believe so. You have regulations within your ordinance here that are, do make a difference between owner and non-owner. You do not have a different map. That's the difference. And you have one boundary.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't allow us to exclude a non-owner occupied in a particular boundary. Is that correct?
I don't believe so. I think it requires you to have a district and then say where they are allowed.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think your answer to his question was we can't have a different map according to state law. Was that your answer?
I believe the question becomes, do you treat them differently as far as non-owner occupied and owner occupied? And your ordinance does have distinctions between owner occupied and non-owner occupied. You can only create one boundary, I believe.
You believe?
Yes, sir, and I'll be glad to look at it.
Okay, well, obviously, and that was a great question, Chairman Henderson. I guess I'd need to know the answer to that, because it could make everything else moot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will have Councilman Ledford followed by Councilman Gilbert. So Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the question. The way it was framed by Councilman Mitchell, I thought it to be very considerate to the way he phrased it. So as we know, we do not have it in District 4, and there are a couple of other council districts that don't have it. So what I can say is from about 4 years ago when I was running for the position, it was on the forefront of conversation. At the time, I went to many neighborhood association meetings, HOAs. And at that time, we were about 400 people who said that we just weren't interested in it as it was new and unknown factors. Since then, we have watched it develop. We have watched the nationwide conversation. We've seen cities ban certain parts of it. So recently, what I've been doing when meeting with HOAs, and I've had a lot of opportunity, especially with the tornadoes, to kind of ask this question again. And now I'm actually receiving letters from large homeowners associations asking me to stand firm in not allowing it because they don't feel that it fits District 4. I've had some folks that have reached out who have finally been reached through the website, I guess. And right now, the number, if you were to ask me, Councilman Mitchell, if I were to run a tally, it's about 700 to 6. And that tells me a lot, and especially when I'm receiving HOA letters strongly asking me to please stand firm that it's not right for District 4. Now, that being said, I do realize that in time, there might be a hybrid. There might be certain areas, especially along the Gun Barrel Corridor, which is more commercial. But at this time, I'm having a lot of homeowners associations even being more aggressive in their position, asking me to please leave it alone and that it's not right for District 4.
Great input. Thank you, Mr. Ledford. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ledford. Councilman Gilbert.
To answer Councilman Mitchell's question, majority of District 5 still say they don't want short-term vacation in their area. We do have a few that do want it, but majority do not. So we still keep it like it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got a hand that cancels Councilman Smith's hand, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, same goes for me right now, Councilman Mitchell. I've had probably 3 or 4 at most reach out since the very beginning of this conversation. So my numbers would very much resemble what Councilman Ledford has found. I've yet to go to an HOA meeting where anybody was really interested in having short-term vacation rental, owner occupied or otherwise. So yeah, at this time, I would be firm on my original vote in not having it in District 3.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Councilwoman Burge.
Yes, my response is pretty much the same. My tally now of people that would really be in favor is 7. If you'll remember, we had the meetings downtown that Donna hosted relative to them, and we had no one come in favor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Chair, that's and I believe that is the 4 districts that do not allow it, period. So that input was very, very helpful. I guess I'm going to need, unless somebody else raises their hand, I guess I'm going to need Mr. Attorney to tell me if I'm wasting my time or if whatever I do is going to be very limited. So, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Noblett. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I will get you that information shortly here. The act that is applicable still here in Tennessee has not changed since, I guess, May of 2018, at least regarding the statute. It prohibits us from developing any new regulations of a certain type here that would, I guess, it did not affect property that was being used as a short-term rental unit prior to the enactment of this new state law. But we have to be careful in whether we're going beyond the preemption provisions of that state statute here as well. So I'll get that to you.
Right. You know, Mr. Chair, actually thinking about it, I wouldn't mind hearing from a couple of council people where it is allowed in their district, because there's especially the couple of people who've had, you know, forest fires light up in their district based on, I think most of those have been non-owner occupied, but I'd still like to, if they'd be so kind, to hear from them.
Sure. Before we get, well, we got Councilman Coonrod, and then I'll address it once we go around the table.
Thank you.
Councilman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Jerry, I was really gonna be quiet on this one, but since you poked the bear. uh, and for me, I wish that we could go citywide because we're missing dollars that we clearly could use. I totally understand the points that Gilbert, Lefford, Smith, and Carol Burrs have made, but I view it differently. All of these areas, people, they live in those areas, but they feel like it's more appropriate to have short-term vacation rental in my district, where they own the property, and most of them don't. And we know this to be fact because on the application it show where they actually live at when they're applying for a non-owner occupied vacation rental. We just went through this with a guy who was using his property in Glenwood but living out in one of y'all's areas. But it's appropriate to have it in our districts 7, 8, and 9, but it's not appropriate to be in you all's area, and I have an issue with that. Our areas are mostly historically Black and brown, and to me you're saying, okay, it's okay for us to just dispose these type properties in these areas. So we got to be honest about that. So if it's a valuable commodity to dump these short-term vacation rentals and you profit off of it, although you live in the other areas, it should just be just as welcoming to be next door to the people who own the properties that's operating in my district. Like, what's the difference? But I think we're missing out on opportunity to obtain tax revenue, and the fact that people are still operating in these areas. They're still operating. No matter how much you're saying I don't want them, they're still in everybody's district. We see it every day. We get complaints about it. And I just think that we need to be doing something different. I mean, because when the next council person come on, they're gonna say the same exact thing possibly, or they may not be. And I see you shaking your head, Lefford. But the next time one of your constituents propose in my district to open up a short-term vacation rental, I'm gonna ask them why do they feel as if it shouldn't happen in their district. That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
That was about a quarter's worth. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Byrd, let's hear from you.
I'm an advocate for short-term vacation rentals. I think they're super cool. The perception of what they really do and they don't do, you pull at the emotion strings when you say, hey, this is going to affect affordable housing. And we know in some of the more influential communities, especially in District 8, those houses would never be affordable, who owned them or who didn't own them. We can't determine how much someone would charge for rent. A lot of times people say, I don't know my neighbor. And if you have a short-term vacation rental, then I talk to people who live in the community and they say, I don't even know the person that's living in my home, in that home right now. So the perception is drawn up to be discouraging when it comes to owner-occupied or non-owner-occupied. I really think we need to tighten up the laws to say where if someone is violating or doing something or having police reports there and they're operating a short-term vacation rental that is bringing harm to the community, then they be shut down. I would like to see it citywide myself. And I think we need to be stronger on revoking those short-term vacation rentals that are not acting appropriately and allowing the ones to flourish that are acting appropriately. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Byrd. Well, for me, many of my constituents want the short-term vacation rentals, where the challenge is to almost a person is the preferences for owner-occupied, because there are some concerns. Some of them justifiably so, but most of them are just good citizens making an investment. But for me in District 7, that's my biggest concern is owner-occupied versus non-owner-occupied. And if I feel the law says we can't differentiate the two, so it's really going to be on us to make those determinations when they come before us for a decision based on whatever criteria we choose, based on neighborhood input. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess Council Chairman Henderson doesn't want to weigh in, but I kind of know where he stands on it anyway. But
well, let's hear from my chairman. Yeah, let him speak for itself.
Thank you. I thought maybe
I was missing somebody. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I thought I'd already weighed in early on. To be honest, and in my district, part of my district has the short-term vacation rental, and part does not. And to me, it's a great balance. I think the fact that we have the ability to approve or not approve non-owner occupied allows us to have a human element in making a decision. Now, does that sometimes put us in the hot seat? It does, but that's what we were elected for. So I think the way it's operating now I think it's operating very well. We can allow non-owner occupied where it's appropriate, and we can not allow it where it's not appropriate. So I think the best I can tell, I think we've struck a good balance. We have council people who have said their district does not want short-term vacation rentals. Part of us have said that they do want it, and it is allowed. I think right now that we have about as good of an ordinance as we could possibly hope for. The only thing I would ask Councilman Mitchell is if we do expand the boundaries, that it continues to be contiguous. I think we would run into problems if we tried to create donut holes by not keeping it contiguous. That's the only thing I would ask, is that we do keep it contiguous.
thank you. I want to thank the whole council for this discussion. All 8 very intelligent and thoughtful comments I just received, and I'm very proud of the partnership I have with all 8 of you. I guess what has prompted these thoughts in me more than anything else is when I hear from folks, especially as it relates to owner occupied. So often you're probably looking at someone that's trying to supplement their income. Several of them are retired and trying to, they're at a place where anything to supplement income would be helpful. And so that's I guess my biggest thought, the thing that's tearing at my heartstrings, which I'm not supposed to have let happen, I guess, sometimes when I make these decisions. But I just want to thank you all for those comments, and give me an opportunity and maybe even to do a little bit more research into what drives owner occupied versus non-owner occupied. Of course, I'd like something from the city attorney before I go too much further with it, to tell me if I got to shut down, the process of maybe enlarging owner occupied. So thank you all very much, and Chairman Erskine Oglesby, I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. Okay, I thought Councilman Coonrod, you good?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I had seen your hand. I didn't know if it was the old hand or what. Okay, we've had this discussion. Look like we're right where we are. I don't see, from what I'm hearing, those that has our challenges, which puts us on, as Chairman Henderson said, on us to make those decisions based on handling the business of our district and the needs of our constituents. And those who do not have it, God bless you. But with that being said, if there's no other comments or any other items we need to discuss on this matter, we'll move on to the next item under Economic and Community Development. Seeing no, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just thought about one, Chair.
Sure.
Phil, could you check to see what other surrounding cities are doing with the non-owner occupied? I know Nashville, they were working on some legislation almost a year ago about the non-owner occupied.
I will. I was just noticing that as y'all were talking here. I'll get you some stuff on what Nashville is currently doing. I'm also sending to Councilman Mitchell right now the MTAS section on short-term rentals, and I can do that for all of you here that's got the state law requirements on it as well.
Okay, and then also, I know we call it short-term vacation rentals, and a lot of people, constituents, have voiced concerns of how it's confusing. Is it any way that we can entertain the thought of switching it to short-term rental properties?
It's whatever you choose to do in that regard. I think the short-term vacation rental statute was written initially because of the issues that were coming up in Gatlinburg. And Gatlinburg was having a number of vacation rentals up there. And I think many of the other cities have tried to follow that Gatlinburg model.
Yes, I know Nashville call it short-term rental property. That's why I asked. Now, Gatlinburg would be a vacation spot. So I don't know if we need to, do I need to make a motion to amend it or?
Well, I think it'd probably be better if you're going to make amendments here to include that in your legislation that as you go, a new name change, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, and then I know we had previously talked about the funds being used. I know it was kind of put on hold. Daisy made her presentation, but we didn't decide as a council if we were just not going to move forward, or we're going to try to look for other options of what we could do.
Yes. And I think there is some question about what has been pledged and what hasn't been pledged for tourism dollars in here. And I think there was some issue about that legislation-wise as to whether there is a specific requirement that it goes for, I guess, the same way that other hotel motel taxes would go.
Okay, and I brought that up too as well about, and I don't know if you were supposed to get back with me, because Corker and the council did an excellent job with that. And we, like I say, we still see the benefits of it. Are we able to amend that ordinance to include other distressed areas?
Well, I guess that was done at that point in time. There's usually a time period on each one of those documents that would last. If it's a 20-year term, I'd have to look and see what that is and when that expires.
Okay, if you, because I would like, if so, if it comes back, I will, we'll be making the motion to amend it to add that those dollars, it be included for other distressed areas such as 7, 8, 9. In fact, all of our areas have poor pockets. Let's just be honest. So everybody could use a little bit of their hotel motel taxes in our districts. So yeah, please find out what you can feel, and so the council can make a decision.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod. I mean, a lot of that is at 7, so I know where you're talking about expanding it to those parts of District 7 that has had some challenges with economic development. So I know where you're coming from with that. So Phil, what would be the next step be? So we don't be sitting on this, because Councilwoman Coonrod has brought this up as well as a couple other council persons a number of times. And we really need to get some closure on this moving forward.
If y'all can give me a bullet point list of what types of things you want changes in, and if it's boundary issues, that's one thing we've heard here today. If it's trying to be able to at least earmark funds for particular purposes on that end of it here, I need to know, what you're wanting to do in that regard. And then I'll try to give you legal reasons for why it could or could not occur. And I will try to make sure I back that up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nobley. I'll follow up with you on that, and we'll get it scheduled to have a follow-up to that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, we'll move on to our next item, and that is an update on the skate park. So, Madam Clerk, I see Travis is in there. Would you please bring him up, please? He's going to give us a report.
And what's his last name?
Wait a minute, hold on, let me go down. I did see him earlier. It's Marzak.
Perfect.
It's Mar, yeah.
Thank you.
There he is. If he could be unmuted. Councilwoman Coonrod, I know this was something you had specific questions on. So, you ready, Travis?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you for being on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we had an extensive conversation last week about the skate park update. So would you please share that with my colleagues on the council?
Sure, happy to. Appreciate it. So
Yeah.
we conducted a skate park feasibility study titled the Skate Park Strategy. And it was our first effort essentially by Open Spaces to manage and determine the need for a modern skate park. And ultimately, if that need revealed itself, pursue building one. So we consulted with Vander Zalm and Associates out of Canada, who does this extensively, and built a strategic effort to evaluate the existing skate park and opportunities and identify factors for a successful skate park and location. Work on an initial budget estimate so that we can move into the next phases, which would go in front of you guys. The plan was finalized in February. It goes into depth by demonstrating the benefits to skateboarding in and for a community. It discussed the health and safety, inclusivity, economic prosperity. It presented information to the community and thoroughly engaged the public for feedback in the form of paper and online surveys, as well as face-to-face interaction. I would like to note that we had over 500 participants from the area, including in Georgia, some as far as Nashville and Atlanta, that came here. And often we discovered in this process that people will travel up to 4 hours to spend the day at a skate park. And a lot of what Chattanoogan's are doing are traveling down to Atlanta to skate in their multiple parks that are concrete versus our modular one. And the study goes into depth about, the difference of modular and concrete. What we did is we studied 10 sites, and we were trying to focus along the greenway networks in order to reach as many participants as possible. The surveys told us that most of the respondents, the highest level, actually was in Hickson. And so the top site is actually River Point or River Park. And the county uses that site for J-Fest in different areas. We were going to kind of supplement off a portion of that, not really where they hold J-Fest specifically. We did talk with the county quite a bit, and they had asked us to look at 4 additional sites. And so the second site that we selected as a backup that we're currently pursuing is River Point, and that's where the South Chick Greenway meets the Riverwalk at Lost Mound Drive. So additionally, the study assessed the need by using standardized numbers, which are described in detail in the document. It's a common practice in most industries. So while we understand the history of skateboarding is rife with social, cultural, and political complexities, it's going mainstream as a common activity in sport. It is planned to be in the 2020 Summer Olympics, although we'll see how the COVID influences that. What we did learn in this process and talking with a lot of people is the broad acceptance is evidenced through growing international representation, economic prosperity, and social development. A lot of our youth and young, even the adults, expressed how skateboarding builds important qualities like creativity, confidence, entrepreneurship, independence, and resilience, which helps develop determined, self-directed, independent individuals of all ages. It also showed that skate parks operate as sites of pro-social behavior for youth, encouraging park users to exhibit behaviors such as cooperation, learning from one another, socializing, respect, etiquette, as in taking turns and helping one another. It is an activity with over 50 million participants across the globe that transcends age, gender, ethnicity, and economic backgrounds. One special note I'd like to add is that this sport often fills a need for the youth that don't necessarily fit well or feel compelled to participate in traditional team-based sports. And we really want to encourage any kind of development in that way that we can. We continue, although we're a little off track just because of the COVID, but we held an annual skate park event with the local advocates and leaders that have been part of this process from the beginning, just to keep participation up, let people know what's going on, that we're supporting them, and build trust between the city and the residents. And we continue to plan and do that. We want to do one in the spring and one in the fall every year. So as soon as we can safely open back up, we're planning for that. But we currently have funding already allocated, and we are finalizing the RFQ, just working on a couple questions with legal and purchasing about the design phase. So the next phase will be to hire consultants to come on and design the park at River Point, additionally working with the county just to ensure that an MOU agreement is in place. And we have pursued construction funding this year, but understand that the environment and circumstances pulled that away. And so we'll be following up the next year. Happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Got Chairman Henderson.
Thank you. Travis, so I want to be real clear. I understand, where is the expected location? What are y'all looking at now? You were first looking at River Park, correct?
Correct.
And I take it the county said look elsewhere?
So River Park, the specific site that we have is a city-only parcel. And so we were just trying to be good team players with the county and not interrupt the plans that they had been working on through their master plan. So the River Point is now the portion where the South Chick Greenway and the Riverwalk meet at Lost Mountain Drive is the one that we are pursuing for design.
Okay, is that in any way in conjunction in cooperation with the county? I mean, does county have any ownership or partnership in River Point?
It's a jointly owned parcel. Yes.
Okay, and you don't have to tell me now, but offline, I want to know specifically who you're dealing with at the county.
Okay. Would you like to know now?
If you don't care to share it now.
I've just been talking with Tom Land, who's the Parks and Rec director, and then he has been talking with Lee Norris, and Lee would like to set up a meeting to discuss this further.
Okay, so there really hasn't been any kind of agreement reached with the county at this point with River Point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are we going to have an MOU in place before we go any further with design, with consultants, with yada, yada, yada?
So we've discussed that, and we're still, as of right now, I'm getting the guidance that it's not necessary. It's
okay,
necessary
stop.
when it comes to construction.
Could I just, as a council person, and the council might want to weigh in on this, I would like to see an MOU in place with the county before we go any further with spending money, with wherever we're going to put it, as long as the county has joint partnership. And the rest of the council can weigh in on that. What is the budget estimate? You mentioned that y'all in the study did a budget estimate. What's the budget estimate for this?
We had requested 1.8 million for the construction.
Okay. What about consulting fees, design, yada, yada, yada? What's the total package?
We currently have 320,000 budgeted for design.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Henderson, I really wanted to hone in on an idea of the budget for one thing. So that's good. And I also am in total agreement with Councilman Henderson that a commission and council voted approved MOU, I think, would be critical to spend another penny. The mound, Lost Mound location, used to bike around there a lot. And I was always told that there's significant archaeological areas there. Is that true, or has that part of it been studied at all as far as choosing this location?
So part of our next phase is soil studies and core studies, which I've been working with engineering on what the best method for studying that is. The county has told me, Tom Lamb has informed me that they did a study on that site, and the mound portion that's at the entryway is the only archaeologically significant area they have found. But additional studies would help us do that, which would be part of the design phase.
Okay. One more question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The consulting firm that we hired to do this, I think I heard you say they do a lot of these all over the country. So I've got to tell you, Travis, I'm a little bit skeptical about hiring someone that their probably main business is doing these things. So I can kind of guess what the recommendation is going to be when it comes back. But my question is are they going to be allowed to bid on the design, and after that, if we get that far, the construction of it?
The information I'm getting from purchasing right now is that when somebody that bids and is successfully awarded on design cannot bid on construction. I'm following up with legal on what that means specifically as far as prime versus sub. Nobody's specifically outlined for anything yet. My concern in pursuing this question really has to do with just the specialized portion of design construction that it takes. I don't know that I've got indication that a typical concrete builder can do this bowl and ramp design. So, but we've worked with this before, and we'll just do whatever the law permits us to do.
Okay. All right. And I want this known that I'm not philosophically opposed to this, and I can lend some history because I was around when we did the original one, and there was controversy back then about doing a modular one versus one of these. And I think probably the design has probably improved quite a bit for the concrete one, but I will tell you for a fact that we had a lot of problems with skateboarders in the downtown area using architectural pieces to, and basically doing a lot of damage when we made the move to do this. So, and I can also tell you personally for a fact that there are a lot of people that do this that probably aren't very excited about participating in things like team sports and things like that. They are more individuals. Several of them practice their individuality quite a bit, as a matter of fact, in many ways. So I want to make it clear I'm not against it, but I still want to agree with Councilperson Henderson that we need to think further through before we go spending a lot more money on this, in my opinion. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Mitchell. Councilman Coonrod, I saw your hand up. You still want to speak?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just going to chime in. I just wanted to know what happened originally when the talk was about it. It was you all were looking at a location on Glass Street or somewhere in that Glass Street area. What changed?
That may have been before my time. I don't think there was a specific location along Glass Street. I'm double checking all our appendices where we had that.
Okay, and also Councilman Mitchell, not Mitchell, but Chairman Henderson, can you explain to me what yada 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 is?
That would be so on and so forth. That's what
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't know if that was some new political jargon that I'm slow to catch on to that kind of stuff. But skateboarding, Travis, thank you for the great job that you're doing. I too got to agree with my colleagues that I think we'll probably need an MOU in place if the county is going to be on board with helping. But I would really love to see a skate park in an inner city community that's diverse, because a lot of people love to skateboard. Skateboarding is art. People use it, to have fun, do different tricks, most definitely keep them healthy. It's a form of activism that a lot of people use as well. And one of my favorite skateboarders is Tony Hawk. I don't know if you all are familiar with him, but he do a lot of stunts and shows. He's an actor as well. He's out of California. And one of the movies that he displays a lot of his moves in is Lord of the Dogs. So Dogtown. So check him out and see. He's one of my favorites. I've skateboarded a time or two in my life. But I really wish that we could look at some other areas. I mean, we always concentrate on just putting things at River Park or, the other greenways, but there's other areas clearly that I feel like it'll be beneficial. But of course, Travis, I'm not the architect, I'm not the engineer. But again, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Gilbert, thank you for your patience, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I know we're speaking about MOUs with the county, but I know most of you have not been with us during this time. I know Carol Burrs have, Councilman Burrs, that they kind of renege on MOUs, because we had an agreement with them in the library, and they never did keep up their end. So if we do get them involved, hopefully they put the money up first so we get the park built instead of waiting on them to anticipate later. Because no guarantee they're on the MOU.
Okay, Councilman Gilbert. Any other questions? So where are we? What is the next phase, Travis, moving forward? To get the MOU, and then you will come up with the all contracts necessary to move this forward. What is the next phase from this point forward?
Yes, so we'll follow back up with the county on the MOU, and then we'll be ready to issue the RFQ, which will then go out to bid for the next consultant to perform the design study. And then we'll be in December, I guess, is our start of our budgeting process if we don't get anything this July.
Okay, is this 320? It's already in the capital budget, or where is that coming from? Refresh my memory.
Yes, it's already approved from last year's budget.
Okay. And let me ask you this: at 1.8 million, where would the rest? Would be solely a? Okay, I guess we have to look at it from the standpoint, if we do a MOU with the county, then it'll be a split on the actual 1.8 million.
Well, the initial term was that this is a city-funded project, and this is one of those specialized design things that we can go out and get sponsors money for. We've been looking at the Tony Hawk Foundation. They have, through one of our civilian advocates, reached out and expressed some interest. They have a grant program. There's multiple grant programs that we are identifying to look at additional funding sites. But one of the great, well, I don't want to say too much. It doesn't. We are looking at additional funding sources.
Okay, so with it being 1.8 million, we would have all these funding in place when it comes time for construction. Is that correct?
Yes, well, we'd have to.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Is there like a deadline, a point in time where you want all this taken care of? Because I would hate for this to really drag on and on and on. And because I know we approved the consultant fee roughly shortly after this current council took office. So as everybody know, I'm a timeline kind of person. So I like to kind of get an idea that we are moving forward with the project, because there are some time goals that has to be met for it to move forward.
Yeah, so
ideally.
Yeah, so we're on track. COVID slowed down the design phase a little bit for all public meeting kind of led projects, but we're still on track. We'll get the RFQ issued probably in a month. Just honestly waiting on a little feedback from the legal, and then we'll be able to issue that. I think it's a 30-day bid process. I would imagine a month review and contract build, and then hopefully when we are able to safely come out of this pandemic we're in, we'll be able to hold some public meetings. But part of my bid change is how are these consultants responding to that? We've already built up internally great networks to reach out to people from the initial feasibility study. So we're planning for construction funding next July, and we'll be ready to issue that as soon as that's approved.
Okay. Is there a point person that's going to be designated to provide the leadership for these funds from other entities that help support this project?
It's me.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions? I see no other hands. Thank you, Travis, for a great presentation. Look forward to updates in the near future, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, Chairman Henderson, I have nothing else at this time. Councilwoman Burrs is up next, so I shall yield to her with your permission, sir.
Councilwoman Burrs, would you like to take over?
I think we better, sir, since we have a whole budget and the time is short.
My hand up, Chair.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you. I know my hands look a little small up there, but hey. But since you're the Economic Development Chair, I have just one question of a request about that Lincoln Park. We were told a couple of weeks back that
Councilwoman Coonrod, hold on. Could we discuss this next week? We do have the budget presentation. Mara and Miss Daisy's waiting.
Right, I understand that, Chip, but I need to have it taken care of today for next week.
Okay, so you would like for me to schedule a presentation
about
or
Lincoln Park, yes, and if we can use those dollars, can it be appropriated to other areas? We were told, and Phil was a part of that discussion when we were told that if operations dollars aren't used, that we could put it in another area. So and it's been years since this Lincoln Park money have been sitting there. So I want to know, what's the plan? Are we still going to move forward? We're putting this road through there. Is it going to be a park? What's going to happen? And what can we utilize those funds for? Because if the dollars were appropriated for a road and it's not going to happen, can we use those dollars to resurface roads in everybody's district? Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it.
Okay, quickly, Chairman Henderson, I can schedule something for next week. That way we can get a more comprehensive update and give the powers to be time to put it together to answer those questions. Would that be good?
Thank you.
Chairman Henderson.
Okay. Thank
Because
you,
we only
sir.
have one committee meeting next week, I do believe.
Yeah. Well, unless the entire council is interested, maybe it's something that we could just get the information to Councilwoman Coonrod and let her, for her information.
Okay.
Let's move on to
Well, wait a minute.
budget finance.
We just proposed something. And
Councilwoman,
previously it's
we're
been
moving
that
on to finance.
well, it's
Councilwoman Burrs,
previously
would you like to take the chair now?
okay. Just do what y'all want to do, but remember this: you're not doing it right, Chip. It takes two people to say if they want something to happen, and something was proposed. I understand you in a rush.
Councilwoman
We here to
Coonrod,
out the council.
we can deal with this. We can even deal with this at 6 o'clock under other business, and let's deal with it then. Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, call to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. You know what, any minutes we had were over a year old, so with permission, can we move on? And because time is of the essence, if the clerk would please read into the record as the chair requested, tonight 7D, and then for next week, 6A and 7B. They've already all been discussed.
A resolution authorizing the Assistant City Treasurer to amend by extending and increasing purchase order number 52611 to Harris Computer Systems for a one-year renewal period through June 30, 2021 for the purpose of billing and collections of property tax in the amount of $127,214.95. 6A, an ordinance amending ordinance number 13473, known as the fiscal year 2019-2020 operation budget ordinance, so as to appropriate $70,000 to the Chattanooga Zoo for the operating expenses due to closure as a result of Executive Order 2020-06 to close as precaution due to the COVID-19 virus pandemic, wherein funds are reallocated from the Department of Public Works. 7B, a resolution authorizing a payment to the Southeast Tennessee Development District for 2020 assessment dues in the amount of $35,211.54 and the Regional Tourism Initiative in the amount of $5,000 for a total amount not to exceed $40,211.54.
Thank you very much. May I continue, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely, please.
All right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to have our budget presentation as we do regularly. You will have the budget notebooks or a PDF or all of this information. I'm sorry?
We're at a time essence, like you said.
We will have a PDF to you. The notebooks will be at the office, and also the budget will be going up online. You'll find from the budget presentation that it's pretty much last year's budget with a few modifications, which the experts will discuss. So our budget schedule for education will change a bit. In other words, we're not going to be rediscussing last year's budget. That's already a done deal. Right after this meeting, I'll be sending you a schedule of our budget education session meetings. And what we're going to be doing deep dives into are the things that you all have already noted. Employee compensation, we'll be doing a deep dive into that. Agency funding, a deep dive into that. Capital projects and paving, deep dives into that. And then on June 9th, if there are other issues, other areas you want to do a deep dive in, we can add those. Now, one of the things that the chair and I discussed, and Chair, you may want to chip in, is in order to do any other deep dives, we're going to need consensus of the council. All of you are very bright people, and some of you want to do your own deep dives into things. And Daisy and Mar have agreed to meet with you individually to do that. So if there is an issue, it's going to take a consensus of council for us to spend a whole session on that. Otherwise, we'll get all your questions answered and in private meetings with Mara and Daisy or both. Whenever we're discussing an area, we will also be bringing in the department head who is related to that area to stand by if you have any other questions. A lot of this may not make sense until you see the budget, and then you may have questions afterwards. Any comments before we get started? All right. You'll have the total schedule, including the public meeting, first and second readings, and we may even be able to move that up. I really appreciate your patience in this and getting this done. So with all of that said, I would like to turn the meeting over to Daisy and Mara to do their regular budget presentation, if you would, please.
Mr. Vice Chair, while you're bringing them on, if you could go ahead and take Travis out of our meeting.
Will we ask questions after or during the presentation?
Russell, we're going to do it like we've always done it. And remember, we let them make the full last year, we let them make the full presentation. You'll get your notebook. You'll get all of that. And then the questions start next week. Now, if they're overall general process questions, sure, but not during, wait till the end. The problem is we're running really late. So let them get their thing in, and then I'm making notes of every question you ask, and I'll see that they're addressed, but it may not be today because 6 o'clock we have a meeting. Okay, let's go.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Are you able to hear me and see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
We are.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight. This is Maura Sullivan, your Chief Operating Officer. I'm joined at the virtual podium tonight with our CFO, Miss Daisy Madison. Daisy, are you with us?
She may have her mic muted.
Gotta have Daisy.
She's on here, but she's muted. There she is.
She's unmuted now.
All right.
There she is.
We can even see her.
All right. Got Daisy. Wonderful. Well, get started with our presentation. I want to first acknowledge the great work of our administrators, our deputy administrators, budget staff, the results team members, our fiscal analysts, who've all really had a lot of hard work and a lot of different types of hard work this year as we've created one budget and then created another one, really. So it's been quite a challenging year, as you can imagine. And thanks to the mayor and the entire leadership team for their flexibility and patience while we have created, uncreated, and recreated a budget. Our city, state, and nation are in the middle of a global pandemic. Our city was hit and injured by an EF3 tornado. Our unanticipated expenses are rising, and our revenues from sales taxes, fees, and other taxes are declining. And it's budget time. How do you begin to prepare a budget at a time like this? The first thing you must do before you refine your revenue projections, before you look at your forecasts, the first thing you must do is look at what your guiding principles are going to be. Mayor Burke did just that. He met with the city leadership team and made sure that we understood our mission was to come back to him with a budget that held these values. There would be no tax increase for Chattanooga. There would be no city employee layoffs. We would maintain our crucial services for Chattanoogans. We would maintain capital projects to spur economic development and maintain safety net programs for our residents. These values will ensure that Chattanooga can emerge from this crisis stronger than before. This budget represents an $8.4 million reduction in revenues compared to last year's budget. Our usual sources of funding, especially local option sales tax, have been deeply impaired by the coronavirus crisis. Despite the challenges, again, this budget does not call for a property tax increase, layoffs, or salary or service cuts. A big reason that we're able to do this, to present this type of budget to you, even though other cities across the country are facing large layoffs and property tax increases this year, is because our city was in excellent fiscal health prior to this crisis. Our reserves are healthy and our credit rating is excellent. Every available indicator, from employment rates to population growth to property values to job creation, proves that our economy was among the strongest in the entire country prior to the pandemic hit. This is a budget like no other, and not one that we expected to deliver to you today. Our early projections had us in a very comfortable position. We were looking at 3% growth in a very, very, very good year. And now we're facing this $8.4 million reduction in revenue. Earlier this year, we held community meetings, and results teams worked hard to evaluate the fantastic ideas that were put together by our departments and agency partners. We were excited about sharing those new ways of doing things and new programs with you. We were looking at new ways to do compensation for employees, expanded vendor outreach to increase minority contracting on city projects, new classes for police and fire, expanding early learning opportunities for families, increasing desperately needed homeless support and services, building a skate park like we just talked about, and so much more. But these are now items for another day. This is a responsible budget. We are not raiding our reserve fund to pay for this budget shortfall. This is a resilient budget. It makes tweaks in all departments by tightening our operation, but continues to promote our core services. And this is a budget based on continuing to drive results for the people of Chattanooga. For this presentation, Daisy and I will walk you through a little of the background of where the city was financially before the coronavirus and the tornado hit our city. Then we will discuss the impact of those events on our revenue and savings, all as a backdrop for the creation of the budget. We'll walk you through the hard choices the administration made in order to balance the budget. And then we'll end with a brief overview of the fiscal year 21 budget. We'll deliver the budget in its entirety to you at the conclusion of this presentation via email as a PDF, as Councilwoman Burrs just alluded to. The hard copy budget books will be available in your council office for you to use as soon as you can get by there and collect them. Additionally, the budget will be available on our website and through our budgeting app later today. Daisy?
The 2008 recession was much less abrupt in timing than we're experiencing. It taught us the value of a healthy reserve, high liquidity, and long-term fiscal strategies. The drop in reserves during the years—
You're gonna make me chew his ass, man.
Councilwoman, Vice Chair, can you mute Councilwoman Coonrod's mic?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, the 2008—
Go ahead, Ms. Daisy.
Okay, the 2008 recession was much less abrupt in timing. It taught us the value of healthy reserves, high liquidity, and long-term fiscal strategies. The drop in reserves that you see during the years immediately following were beginning to replenish in 2011 to 2014. This was a time when market conditions led to significant increases in the cost of medical and pension benefits as well. During difficult times, the city has always strategically invested in initiatives that promote economic growth and maintenance of existing infrastructures that ensures long-term sustainability. Maintenance of strong reserves and restricting its use to one-time capital-related costs has enabled the city to continue to sustain itself during difficult financial times through a combination of pay-as-you-go debt and pay-as-you-go capital financing and debt. An example of this is In 2009, $20 million in incentives were given to Volkswagen during the recession, and then again in 2015. This was done in collaboration with Hamilton County and the state of Tennessee. This investment, along with many others before and after, including this proposed operations and capital budget, continue to put forth a financial plan that assures that Chattanoogans will again weather the current twin crisis and come through stronger than ever before. While fund balance peaked in terms of dollars to $80 million in 2019, it was at its highest as a percentage of revenues in 2018 of 29.1%. Since it is not our goal to simply hoard cash, these reserves have been and hopefully will continue to be used for one-time capital expenditures, minimizing the issuance of debt. Just as many other areas of performance, the city's financial position is measured based on a set of criteria established by national rating agencies, one of which is the level of general fund reserves. As indicated by this chart, Chattanooga's reserves are on target with the median of all cities and exceed many other cities in Tennessee and Alabama and others. Among other criteria, S&P cites the city's strong fiscal management and economic growth as a basis for its assignment of a AAA rating. Simply stated, the city is well positioned to weather these difficult times due to its strong fiscal management, conservative budgeting, and forward approach to strategic planning. As Morris stated, the FY21 budget shows a loss of $8.4 million due to the COVID-19. All major revenue sources are expected to be down. While state income tax shows a slight increase, this is totally due to a filing deadline extension that was granted by the state, requiring these collections to be reported in 21. This tax, as you know, is phased out in 21 with the expectation of minimum returns due to the current market. This represents a permanent loss of a significant source of revenues for future years. Property taxes are flat. Historically, property tax is a more stable revenue source and has been slower to be significantly impacted by economic downturn. However, a sustained slowdown in our economy could result in reduced property values and thereby a reduction in property taxes. State and local sales taxes are our most volatile revenue source, with a combined reduction of $6 million for FY21. State sales taxes are down nearly 5%, while local option sales taxes are projected to be at a 10% reduction. In addition to the economic losses from coronavirus, we have over $12.6 million in cost from our response to the April tornado. Hundreds of city first responders, public works employees, emergency contractors, and volunteers have worked tirelessly to clean up debris, repair damaged infrastructure, and help our residents begin the long road back to normalcy. The night East Brainerd and the adjacent communities were hit by the tornado, your city workers sprang into action and did not stop for the next 10 days. Hundreds of hours of overtime, equipment costs, damage repair, and replacement all cost money. Sure, we are applying to TEMA and FEMA for reimbursement, but that reimbursement could take months into the future and includes a match. The city won't wait to do this work because the people of East Brainerd should not have to wait. We are spending the dollars necessary to ensure our neighbors are made whole. It's important that we do not raid our reserves, as Mara has stated. It is our primary source of future cash flow requirements. Combined estimates for the twin COVID-19 and tornado crisis total over $13 million, up to 12.6 of which will be spent in FY21 for tornado damage requiring upfront cash outflow pending federal and state reimbursements. Our cash reserves could be reduced to slightly over $6 million by the end of FY21.
Now you have a picture of the impact on our revenues and our fund balance. In creating the budget, once we realized the devastating impact that the coronavirus was going to have to our entire economy and the resulting impact on our city budget, we did what anyone else does when you face lost income. You make hard choices. As the mayor has said many times in the past several months, the toughest times bring out the best in people. Certainly, we've seen that time and again through the diligent and tireless work of our employees, through the compassionate service of community partners working to educate our kids, find housing for the homeless, and provide COVID testing to the most vulnerable, and through the cooperation of Chattanoogans who understand how serious the crisis still is and are working even now to limit its damage to our community. Agency funding will be reduced by about 2%, which is a hard choice at a time when social services are needed even more. But we did maintain funding where possible to continue these partnerships to ensure these increased demands are met. These agencies provide food and help for our residents. These agencies provide important counseling to people in crisis. And make no mistake, these agencies' budgets are under the same type of stress as our budget is, and surely are meeting less revenue from sources other than ours. And we understand that, but we have to make hard choices. Salaries for all city personnel are being frozen at their fiscal year 20 rates. This includes a 1-year postponement of career ladder increases for the Chattanooga Police and Chattanooga Fire Departments. This is a shared pain throughout the city and a hard choice, particularly when we were poised to launch and fund the results of our compensation analysis. Hiring freeze has been in place since March and will continue. This is a large part of how we will fund this budget this year and make it work. Our city budget has a large percentage devoted to salaries. We are saving dollars by maintaining salaries at their same level, but we are also saving significant dollars by maintaining current staffing. And this staffing will stay largely static throughout the year. Yes, there'll be critical positions replaced, but the more we can save when positions are vacant, the closer we come to meeting our revenue challenge. Where you and the people of Chattanooga will see the effects of this, although we will work to minimize it as much as possible, is in some slowing of service delivery. Our staff members will be asked to do more with less and with fewer hands to deliver the services. We are delaying the expansion of our recycling program. We are cutting our capital budget by 10%. Challenging times call for hard choices, and we've made the choices that were needed to balance our budget. Now we have our revenue and our hard choices. So what does it look like when it's all put together? Some of the highlights you will find in the operating budget are that, as I said, core city services will be maintained at current levels. You will see that city staffing will be maintained at current levels. Salaries will remain steady from current levels, but no layoffs and no reduction in salaries. You will see that we will be funding longevity bonuses for employees who have worked for us at least 5 years, honoring that commitment. You will see that we are funding the increased costs of medical benefits for our employees, and you will see that we are maintaining the funding for our medical and pension trust funds. You will not see any increases in the ISS, the Interceptor Sewer Fund rates, but you will see a small planned fee increase in the water quality fee. On the capital budget side, you will see highlights such as the replacement of Fire Station 15, a building that has long outlived its useful life cycle and does not meet the needs of the staff who live there. We are funding an important safety project that will build an emergency power backup at our public safety complex that will ensure continued emergency response during power outages. This is being built in cooperation with EPB. We will continue to reinforce our housing commitment for Chattanooga with dollars in the Housing Trust Fund. And another important part of our capital budget is our roads and resurfacing budget. The amount we are including in the city's largest contribution to road repair. This year's paving budget is $8.4 million.
General fund revenues by sources. The general fund revenues are $255.4 million. As you can imagine, property taxes is our most stable revenue source and makes up 59% of the total budget. State and local sales taxes combined make up another 24% of total budget. Combined, property taxes and sales taxes comprise 84% of the city's total general fund operating revenues. Sales tax shows a loss of $6 million or 8.9% due to the pandemic. Our second largest source of revenue, we are suffering a $6 million loss. So how do we use these dollars? The two largest uses for FY21 budget are fire and police, representing 46.6% and public works at 12.2%. 9.5% is allocated for debt service, which is still below our benchmark of 10%. The cornerstone of budgeting for outcome is the allocation of scarce resources based on citizen priorities. These priorities has been established as safer streets, stronger neighborhoods, high-performing government, smarter students, stronger families, and a growing economy. Safer streets continues to be our highest priority with an allocation of $134.5 million or 52.7% of resources, followed by stronger neighborhoods at 16.2%. We'll move over to capital. Funding for capital budgets are divided into two categories. Those supported by what we call general government, which is comprised of general fund and special funds, and those supported by enterprise operations. This chart shows the funding sources for the general government capital totaling $62.4 million, nearly 40% of which is financed from external sources, including federal, state, local, and donations. Debt financing makes up 16% of the local government capital projects. Enterprise funds capital budget totaling $94 million, the overwhelming majority of which is for the Interceptor Sewer Fund at 92% or $86.5 million. This budget is primarily for the maintenance and compliance with the EPA imposed consent decree. Maura has pretty much given you a pretty good highlight of all the major capital items. This is another listing of a repeat of some of them and a couple of others. We have $8.4 million for paving, as Maura mentioned, $3.6 million for infrastructure damaged in the tornado, repair for Lake Resort Drive, replacement of Fire Station number 5, and again, Power to Protect Public Safety Microgrid project, and Midtown Parkway. These are just a few. A separate presentation will be presented at one of your education sessions to provide a more detailed look at not just only the capital programs or the capital projects for FY21, but the 5-year capital plan as usual. This slide, in addition to the general fund, this budget that is being presented to you includes 13 other funds, excluding total expenditures for capital. The operations budget for these 14 funds combined total $333.9 million. It also includes nearly $29.6 million use in reserves from various funds, including $3.5 million from general fund reserves. And it includes $156.5 million for the first year of the 5-year capital improvement plan. In summary, The grand total proposed budget that you have before you, or you will receive a copy of later tonight, is $519,973,093. And I had just got to show you, this is your prize document. It's not nighttime reading, but this cover is designed by Jay from our internal artist, if you will. So Maura, you want to wrap us up?
Thank you, Daisy. Sure will. This may not be the most exciting budget we've presented to you, but it is a solid city budget. It is a budget that transitions our community through this crisis and makes investments that will ensure robust economic growth in our community. When our country does begin to emerge from the current economic crisis, the cities that have the strongest quality of life and are most ready to do business will be the most competitive. We are committed to making sure Chattanooga is one of those cities. This council has approved budgets through the years that have made us strong. We have invested in projects and built the infrastructure that has allowed our city to grow and secure our tax base. We must not be afraid to continue to do that. We thank you for investing in the things that have brought us large private investments. Those investments mean we are not like other cities you read about in the news right now who are laying off and cutting pay for police officers, firefighters, and other city employees. We are determined not to do that. Chattanooga's history is about overcoming impossible odds and bouncing back. The next strategy, the next chapter of our story will reflect this strength, but city government must make sure we position the city for long-term success. This budget does that and makes sure that Chattanooga will emerge stronger and even more resilient for tomorrow's challenges. Thank you all for your attention and time. We look forward to reviewing the details of this budget with you over the next coming weeks. Thank you, Dr. Burrs, for allowing us the time.
Thank you very much. Can we get everybody back online again, please? Thank you so much. Okay, let me, before you have any questions, we have time for a few. Mr. Chair, I know you want to take a break. Do you have any timeline? Otherwise, I'd like to go as we planned. You're muted.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry. Timeline as in for tonight, or are you talking about the original timeline that we talked about as far as
well, here's my thought, and
presentation?
I believe it goes along with what you wanted. Next week, in a few minutes, I'm going to be sending a schedule to all of you. Next Tuesday on the 26th, we're going to be going deeply into employee compensation. We're going to have Beverly there as well, talking about the compensation plan. And we're also going to talk about agency funding. If that bleeds over until July 2nd, that's cool. But on July 2nd, we have capital projects and paving, which I knew you were all very interested in. What I will need from you once you get this, this schedule is any other places that a consensus of the council wants to do what we're calling a deep dive, and we will spend sessions on that. If there are those of you who, again, want to go through the whole budget, fine, we can do that offline. Or if there are any of you that aren't in the consensus but want to look at a particular area, we can do that offline. Are there any questions about the process? Darren.
No, ma'am.
Councilman Leonard, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. My question is for either Maura or Daisy, so no questions about process, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
Quick question for Maura or Daisy. In regarding the property tax adjustment for the tornadoes, you have that as a flat item or 0% now. Do you anticipate that number becoming a factor as we learn more about homes that are destroyed or reclassified to their values?
At this point, we have not taken that into consideration. It is the expectation that those homes will probably be returned to their original values sooner, hopefully, rather than later. But at this point, generally speaking, as I've told you, property taxes is generally considered to be flat. Now, under normal circumstances, that would have been an increase. But in keeping it flat, you have acknowledged that there is a change.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Gilbert.
The local option sales tax, can you break that down a little bit more?
Okay, break it down. Local option sales tax is taxes that have been, it's really a Hamilton County local option sales tax. And right now is I think it's still 2.25% of the total taxes that you pay on retail sales. And that tax is allocated within the city on what we call a situs basis, meaning that the entity, it is distributed based upon the location of the retail establishment. So a lot of those businesses are in the city, and that is a relatively large source of dollars for the city. It has ranged as much as 51, 52 million. We have had to cut it back, of course, to the 40s. And so that's really what the states, and that is where we fund, a portion of that is where we fund our economic development fund initiatives.
You said 2.5, correct?
2.25.
Was it 5 on the presentation?
No, that's a 5% reduction. Well, now for local option sales tax, it's a 10% reduction. The state sales tax had a 5%.
How much is hotel motel taxes that we didn't receive?
Well, the hotel motel taxes is in the chart that we had. Right now, of course, those taxes are being reduced as well. I mean, obviously, they're in another fund, but it's we didn't give any detail on that. I'd
like to have the details on that if you get a chance.
It's all in the book, the binder, and
Tell me exactly where it's located in the book so I can find it.
Okay, I will tell you, the books are, you don't have them right now, but anybody virtual, I should have made that part of the presentation. This is the book, and it looks like that, of course. And the first thing this year we put a table of contents that is much more detailed than normal. It will have where all of the offers are, and it'll list to make it much easier for you to find. There are tabs that show overall summaries, revenues, expenditures, general fund, and it has it for each department, tabs for each department. And when you want hotel motel, there is a tab that says hotel motel.
Thank you.
Or any other fund, infrastructure, sewer, water quality, and so forth.
Are you good, Councilman?
Yes, right now, yes.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions or concerns? Okay, I will get this out to you right now. If there's no other business, Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman, I think Councilman Ledford has his hand up at this time.
Oh, sorry. I just saw it go up.
No, it is, Dr.
Sorry,
Burris.
Councilman.
No, thank you for the opportunity. So we will be able to pick these up at the council building tomorrow?
Tonight.
No.
They're there now.
They're there now. Okay, so we can get in. Well, I guess near our mailboxes, those are a little thick, so.
We've given them to Nicole, and she would distribute them in her usual fashion.
Yeah, I think that they were going to be on the table in the kitchen.
On the table. Okay, very good. Thank you. I'll go by in the morning. I look forward to getting it, and I want to thank you.
Oh, come on, come tonight.
I'm still in the middle of Tornadoville here. Thank you for, I know probably a lot of difficult choices It looks like that, you know, we're all making some interesting choices these days. And it looks like that you have really outdone yourselves on this budget, I could say in advance, with the focus on infrastructure, with a focus on people. And I think there's been a lot of good work that went into this in advance. I look forward to reviewing it, and thank you for all your hard work and your staff as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If I may, let's see.
Did you have something else, Daisy?
Yes, I just wanted to comment. I always like to make sure you guys recognize and understand the dedication and quality of staff that you have that works on this budget from a virtual perspective, remotely. They really worked. And, you know, as you can imagine, it was not an 8-hour day or 10-hour day. They did it willingly, no complaints. So I just want to publicly thank them, and if you see them, thank them, and not just them, all of the administrators and so forth, as Mar mentioned, and of course the mayor's guidance. And I want to take this opportunity one last time too. I noticed that for Councilman Gilbert, if there is an outstanding request, I will be happy. If this budget doesn't answer your questions concerning revenues, I will be extremely happy to talk to you and provide whatever additional information I can.
Thank you.
Hey, Councilwoman, on that note, if other council persons have questions, should we funnel all of our questions through Mara and let her sort of direct those to where they need to go?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think that the best way, we met and decided the best way to handle that is directly and try to get them answered. So let's go through Mara. And if at some point, and I'm going to be asking that next week, if there's some issue that the whole council feels is important and they want on the agenda for a public discussion, then we'll add that to the agenda.
Very well. Thank you, ma'am.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. I don't think we have anything further to discuss at this time. Councilman or Vice Chair Smith, if you would go ahead and end our meeting, and we'll see you back at 6 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.